What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Engineers That Filters podcast, episode 108. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and tonight I am drinking a Bell's Amber Ale. Another beer that Lissa left in my fridge. I was hesitant to try it because I don't love ambers, but I did try it, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty good. So I'm drinking it again.
Nice. I don't think I've had that one, actually. I've seen it around a lot, and it's not as exciting as like an Oberon.
Yeah, but it's a solid beer if you want to just have something simple, but it's still tasty.
I feel like it's outshined by all their other good shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, they have a brown, that's good, or an amber, that's good.
But like that's also one that they have all year round.
Yeah. Also, it's not. Yeah. Sometimes the seasonal ones are the fun ones because you're like, ooh, it's Oberon season or
limited stock. Yeah.
Speaking of a fun Oberon or a fun Bell's beer, I'm drinking Bell's No Yeah, which is just a really nice beer. It says easy drinking golden ale, and this shit slaps. I tell you what.
Oh, now you're back to saying slaps instead of fucks.
Hey,
huh?
I use both. All right, sue me.
You can use both. Yeah.
Josiah, I think it's been a long time since you've drinking out of like a standard can, so it looks really small. Like, cause I'm just not used to seeing you with that short of a can.
Yeah, usually have like either a glass or something.
Well, I'm Gabe, and I'm drinking the Alaskan hard seltzer. I saw this at Total Wine the other day. I had to try it, and it slaps. It's pretty fucking good. I said slaps purposely for you, Dave.
Okay.
Don't worry, the it fucks will come later. But it's pretty good. I think it's up there. I don't know if it's better than Press, but it's pretty fucking good.
Well, funny you mentioned Press, because that's what I'm drinking.
Oh shit!
I have 2 Truly teas left, except I didn't want to go back to back. Unlike what I'm gonna do with the bullshit bracket. I'm already talking shit 3 weeks out.
Oh my, yeah, you are starting that early, dude.
What flavor of Press are you drinking tonight, Dayton?
Pomegranate ginger. So not my favorite. Actually, it very well might be my least favorite Press out of the first variety pack.
But you like that worst? Or you like lime lemongrass better?
I think so. It just tastes like fucking Sprite.
Sure. But the pomegranate ginger has got that nice ginger flavor that we all know you love, Dayton.
That is exactly why it's on the bottom.
When I think of Dayton, I think of loving ginger.
I actually did have a moment this week where I thought too much ginger, which is the first time it's ever happened. I was making homemade ramen, and I, before I added the broth, I did a little ginger and sesame oil, Joseph. You know what I'm talking about? But I cut up a little bit too much ginger, and I kept it like in chunks. I didn't like finely grate or anything. So when I was finally, eating the ramen, I'm like, it's a little too much ginger. It's kind of overpowering what's going on.
I'm just imagining biting into like a piece of the ginger root, and me just gonna be like, this would be awful.
And yeah, Dayton, you made a little mention there, but yeah, we are officially doing the bullshit bracket again. It'll be showing up in a few weeks. Stay tuned for that. We're very excited. Production value gonna be through the roof, or so we would like it to be.
Be. I mean, I think so. I've put in a lot of time into making the Twitch assets for it. So fingers crossed that it all goes smoothly.
This will be another 3 episodes in a row trying to figure out who is the best bullshitter. Will Dayton defend his title? Will Emily get revenge and try to win after getting second place last year? Will a new contender come out of nowhere and grab the whole thing?
Gabe not get last place?
One can only hope.
That's my only goal this year, is to not get last. Setting the bar low.
Yeah, it'll be a fun time. I'm very excited for it. But as always, thank you for listening to our show. You can find us on Mondays on all podcast services and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at ewfpodcast, and go and follow us on Twitch at ewf_podcast, where we stream live Thursday nights we stream the recording of the podcast, and Monday nights we stream a little gaming. So come tune in for that if you want some more of us in your week, and make sure to give us that follow because it helps us out a lot. Tonight's topic is brought to you by Dayton. Why don't you give us a little introduction?
Yeah, so what we're going to be talking about this episode is what's called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And this is something that I remember actually reading, or like at least seeing back in like early high school / late middle school. And I think probably the most well-known word that comes out of this Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. Well, actually, let me talk about like the backstory of what it is first before I get into like how well known it is. Basically, there's this guy, and he creates words on feelings that we all feel, or at least most of us feel. Jacob would contest this. That describe feelings that we all feel, but there's no actual word for them. And a lot of these words actually take roots from different languages, whether they be Latin or German or English even, and then kind of like mash them together. So the words actually sound like they could mean what they're proposed to mean, and I honestly like a lot of these words. And I think the most well-known word that this guy has created from his website is called sonder, which I don't know if any of you picked that word to talk about. All right, good. Then it's a good example for me to use. Well, actually, no, it's a bad example because none of you guys know it. But anyway, it's basically a word that is like, you realize that everybody else has a life just as vivid as your own, and you will never be able to like fully know everybody's life story because it's just as complex as your own. And I know that I felt that, like, especially like walking like downtown New York, like literally just seeing, thousands upon thousands of people and just being like, I know literally nothing about any of these people. And it can be pretty intense.
I've felt that. I feel it sometimes when I'm flying and we're taking off, and you look down and you see like thousands of cars on a highway, and it's like all of those cars have people in them, and they're all going to different places, and they all have like their own like agenda, and it's just like it blows your mind. Like all these different people are doing their entire lives and all at the same time. It's very, very weird.
Yeah, it can be a very intense feeling.
Yeah. Joseph, did you have anything you wanted to read from Wikipedia?
Yeah, so it started off as like a YouTube series, well, like along with the dictionary, right? A YouTube series and podcast. And so these are actually called neologisms, which are, let's see. I had, yeah, so coins and defines neologisms for emotions that do not have a descriptive word. So like a neologism, neo, new word kind of thing. Based on his research on etymologies and meanings of used prefixes, suffixes, and word roots, meant to fill a hole in the language. It's just like, just adding words where, English doesn't necessarily have them. Right. So one of them, yeah, I guess this has another example too, which is I don't even know how to pronounce it, Vimodelayan, but it's the lack of creativity within photography due to the existence of similar photographs having been taken in the past.
Actually, I pulled that one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because it reminds every picture I see of the fucking Wanaka tree just cracks me up.
Yep.
Because if you don't know, the Wanaka tree is it's probably one of the most photographed trees of all time, I would assume. It's in New Zealand, and it's in the city of Wanaka, and it's like kind of like in this lake, kind of on the edge of this lake, but it's inside the water during high tide. And if you go there, and Dave, I'm sure you saw this too, you go there any time of the day, there's just like at least 20 people standing around taking a picture of it. And it just cracks me up because it's like when you see a picture, you don't think about the person taking it. And whenever I see a picture of the Monica tree, I just think of the 20 people standing behind the person who took that picture. And it just makes me laugh because it's like this isn't creative because so many people have done it, and it's just not novel anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think about that too with like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, where like a lot of times like you see like everybody, you see pictures of multiple people in the picture all doing the same pose of like leaning up against her or whatever, and it just like kills me. It's like, and like maybe one out of everybody there is doing like some creative like thing with it, but the majority of them are just doing like the like holding
it's
it
either
up.
it's either holding it up or it's the kicking it over. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of we've already kind of done it, but that's the form for the episode tonight. We're just going to be going around talking about words from this dictionary. And I know what you're thinking. Has the podcast gotten to the point where they're reading the dictionary? Yes, we've run out of ideas, but we're hoping this is a more interesting dictionary. And yeah, we just want to share some of these words that express feelings that we may not be able to express easily. So,
hold on. Sorry.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Before we go into it, I want to read the quick history of it, because it's a quick paragraph. So the dictionary was first considered in 2006 when Koenig, who was it, John Koenig, excuse me. He's the author of this dictionary and started the video series. He was a student at Macalester College in Minnesota, actually.
Oh, hey, I know a guy who went there.
Oh, yeah, interesting. He was attempting to write poetry. The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows was the idea he came up with that would contain all the words he needed for his poetry, including emotions that have never been linguistically described. The popularity of the website and the web series began to grow in June of 2015 after a list of 23 words from the dictionary began to be shared on multiple social media sites. So
definitely Tumblr.
It's
got Tumblr vibes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think it's currently hosted on Tumblr because it says Tumblr on the bottom of the screen when you're on the website.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like if you click on the words too, it says like this person has reblogged this. This person liked this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll leave a link to the website in the description. But I think you can just search Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. But yeah, let's start with you, Gabe. What word do you want to talk about?
Sure. I've got this one is because I literally had it happen last night. Nighthawk, a recurring thought that only seems to strike you late at night, an overdue task, a nagging guilt, or a looming and shapeless future. That part's a little. I'm not gonna just say the whole thing because it gets I think a little too much. But I definitely like have that feeling where like I'll start to go to sleep, and then I do my mental checklist of what I did, and then I like, oh, I totally forgot to do this, or like I totally forgot. Like I think the other day it was like I forgot to like set up an oil change or something for my car. I like couldn't do that, and then I was like, oh, I forgot to do this thing at work, and then that's all I'm thinking about and trying to sleep, and then I got all this check marks. I don't know, something that I feel, but I guess again, I mean, I haven't had a word with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have the same one multiple nights in a row, or is it just like you'll have one every so often that's just like, oh, I forgot to do it today?
I guess it really depends. Like if I've been super busy or I have like before me and Joseph took our trip, that would happen like multiple nights in a row where it's like I need to make sure I do all these things before I leave and that this is all set so that I'm good to go. I think that's a pretty good example of a sequential thing, you know. And as it got closer, I think it just got louder in my head where it's like, hey, don't forget your phone charger, you fucking idiot. I don't know. Check your list. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely get a lot of Nighthawks. I think it's just because when you're laying in bed, it's like, okay, I got nothing else to do. All I have to do is lay here. You know, there's
you're not even like
no task.
Seeing. You're like,
yeah, your senses are turned off, and then your mind's just like, let's go over a few things, and it's like, oh, fuck, I forgot to do that.
Yeah, you don't have any distractions. That's why.
Yeah,
it's got more resources now. It's like, oh, thank God, I don't have to fucking smell and see anymore. Let's think about all the shit you didn't do, you lazy fuck.
Or the cringy shit that you did 4 years ago.
Dude, that's the worst. Just remember how weird I was at like the grocery store or something.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the food. Have a good night. Oh, or enjoy your food. Yeah, you too. Ah, fuck. Keeps me up.
Yeah, Joseph and Dane, you guys get Nighthawks?
Not super often, really. A lot of the time, because by the time I'm in bed, I'm usually tired enough to where it doesn't take much for me to fall asleep. So I don't really. I mean, like the only time is when I have like Gabe said, like something like big coming up. But
either something big coming up or something big that just happened. Like, say, like I was supposed to do some task today, like that day that has like a lot of subtasks, or like I don't know, like I just forget a single step, just like be in bed, like fuck. Like it literally happened the other day. I ordered a bunch of parts for work, and I was laying in bed, and I was like, oh, I forgot that one. No, gotta just order it tomorrow then.
One thing that's helped recently is if I do have that thought of like, I forgot to do one thing, I'll just yell at my Google Home and be like, hey, remind me to do this in the morning, so I just don't forget, which has been helpful. But all right, I'll throw a word out there. This one resonated with me a lot when I read it. It's called adrenitis. It is frustration with how long it takes to get to know someone. Spending the first few weeks chatting in their psychological entryway, with each subsequent conversation like entering a different anteroom, each a little closer to the center of the house. Wishing instead that you could start there and work your way out, exchanging your deepest secrets first before easing into casualness until you built up enough mystery over the years to ask them where they're from and what they do for a living. I resonate with this so hard. I fucking hate the small talk, like kitty bullshit when you meet someone. I'd much rather just give me the fucking real shit off the bat. Tell
What's
me
your
your
earliest childhood memory?
yeah. Just like how are you like actually feeling? Don't give me like, oh, how's it going? Oh, fine. No, like, let's give me some dirt. Give me the darkness. As I've said before in this podcast.
Give me the darkness.
God damn, dude.
Yeah, no, I just don't like all like the simple small talk bullshit. I'd much rather just start to get to know someone on a deeper level as soon as possible.
See, Jacob, I agree with you, and I actually picked this word out to talk about as well. Except I picked it out because it's one of those things where that's easy to say in practice, right? It's like I just want to get to know somebody right away. I want to cut the bullshit, just be friends. And I remember saying that on like the dating on like the ideal first dates episode where I wanted the same thing. But like really what I struggle with on that is not opening up to people, but just like remembering those things about myself. Because like with like my like funny stories or whatever, I'm not just sitting there like at any one moment with like 50 stories just like in a clip ready to be shot out of my freaking mouth. It's like it's like no, it's like I'll hear something like somebody might say like, oh yeah, falling through a window. And I'll just be like, oh, have I got a story for you? It's like, so it takes, I think that's why it takes so long. You need a primer to really like get like the memory there, right? So it's like, I don't know, if we're going to go with like the analogy of like walking through like the house through each subsequent door, like it's not a question of these doors are hard to get through, right? It's that you can't find the key, right? Like you need to just keep on walking around to find the key.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with that because in the moment, especially if it's like a date situation, like you're nervous, you're like thinking about other things, like how do I look, like am I acting weird? I don't know, just weird nervous tick things. So maybe you're not thinking of like, oh yeah, I can't wait to tell her this one story I've been waiting to tell for however long. So yeah, I totally get that. I was just thinking about there are sometimes even like in a date situation, right? I'm definitely gonna be anxious. So like I could open up about my like anxiety and stuff, and like, but it's like, I'll hold that back for maybe a later time because that's not maybe a little too much right off the top. That can't be talked about in the first dates episode.
You gotta ease into it, man.
Gotta ease into some stuff. So like, but I wish that wasn't like the social expectation. Sometimes I wish people could just like be real with each other quicker. I'm not saying like immediately, but just quicker than it takes usually. But.
I think though with that, I saw this, this like, I don't know, thing on Reddit, but it was like, the more you get to know, it was a graph of like your expectations of someone versus like how they are, right? So it was like over time. So it was like where you think they stand. Yeah, is what kind of person they are compared to how long you've known them. So it's like, oh, I think this person is great. So then they graph it. It's like it starts off really high, and then it kind of drops down a little bit over time, and it levels out. Or I think this person's really shitty. Then as you get to know them, it kind of levels out a little bit. So like, along with that, like you're more likely, or I don't know, if you say too much like personal stuff, or like if you go balls in, right, you know, you can you'll like, I don't know, it won't
scare them away. Is it
it'll scare them away, but it'll bump the average of your like score, your like or whatever you want to call it, down.
Score.
Right? Score is a bad word, but like your, I don't know,
it was like a goodness
rating or some shit.
Yeah.
Like,
so my question.
Oh, go ahead.
My question to that, Joseph, is it scary? Does it scare people away because of what you're actually saying is strange, or because it's weird because you're saying it this fast?
And I think because you have no baseline of who they are as a person, right? If I introduce someone to introduce myself to someone and say like, "Hey, I'm Joseph. I get crippling anxiety at these times. I have a fear of these things and these things, but I'm pretty cool." You're not gonna think I'm pretty cool, but like,
believe me,
I like to get drunk and have fun with my friends a lot. Okay, you sound like a depressed alcoholic. Like, you know,
Joseph, you are.
I mean, yeah, but
to build on that, there's definitely been people on like dating profiles where they're like, there's one that's like, one thing I won't shut up about, and they'll be like, anything. I'm annoying, or like I'm crazy. Like girls who like self-proclaim themselves to be crazy or like won't shut up, it's like 90% of the time they're probably joking, right? Like they're probably like, haha, look how random my humor is. But I immediately am like, no, because there's gonna be a seed of truth in that. And if that's even partly true, I'm saving myself the fucking time. I don't want to deal with that. It's too early. Don't tell me you're crazy out of the gate. I mean, I guess it saves me time at the end of the day, but it's like, I don't know. Let me figure that out. I don't know. Like, I feel like if you're trying to date someone, you got to hide that a little. I don't know.
Yeah, you got to have that base, that buffer, right?
Yeah. I think that's like my main thing, right? Where like if I'm like talking to somebody and they immediately say, you know, like what Joseph was saying, like I get crippling anxiety in these situations and stuff like that, and just like that's the only thing that I know about you. That is what I'm gonna associate with you. And but if you like come out the gate and you're like, oh yeah, you know, I like doing these things, I like talking about these different things, and then like maybe like after like a conversation, then you're like, oh yeah, like sometimes I get like anxiety. Then it's kind of like it satisfies Jacob's like inner desire to like see people's like darkness, except it's only after he has seen their light.
Yeah. There's some contrast being formed. It's not purely one end of the spectrum.
Right.
So I think one part of this that I've just kind of realized with, so let's say you have a list, right? And these are all the things I want people to know about me, or like this, or maybe these are the things that make up who I am, right? At the top is like the super light stuff, and the bottom is the heavy shit, right? Like we kind of talked about, like I would maybe prefer to get to the heavy stuff first, but the fact of the matter is, you need to get to all of it at some point. And that's just going to take time. Like, no matter what order you put it in, it's still going to take us X amount of time to do it. And I think that's the frustration that I want to, like, express. Like, I wish you could just, like, cram all the shit into, like, one thing and just send it into their brain and be like, hey, this is who I am. Do you get it? All right, cool. I mean, which obviously isn't possible. But it's frustrating because just getting that list, no matter what order you go through, just takes a while. And I just wish it didn't have to take that long.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like I'm still figuring out shit about you guys and like my other friendships. Like, I don't know. I feel like a depth of a person is always changing and growing, you know?
Yeah. That's true as well.
And I think that a lot of that can change based on like the type of time that you spend with people, right? Like if you're only spending like if you're with people a lot, but you're not doing anything where you're actually like learning about them, like if you're just like, for example, like with me, I go out, or I used to go out, and I used to play soccer with like the same group of people like once or twice a week. I really didn't talk about that much with them. except I was spending, multiple hours with them per week. I wouldn't say that I know them that well, but I would probably consider them my friends. But it's one of those things where like you can chunk through that, like that list that you're talking about, Jacob, if you actually like, I don't know, make an effort to.
Right.
Just playing soccer. Hey man, you got depression or something?
Man, you've been kicking the ball really badly lately. Like, what's up, man?
What happened? It's like here's my list. Just
sluggish on the field recently. You still eating well, or you just slacking off on that diet?
Dayton, give me another word.
All right, let me close out adronitis. Let's see here. I think I am going to choose. I'm probably gonna slaughter the pronunciation, which is gonna be like the theme of this episode.
Yes.
I'm gonna pronounce it Wai Tai, where
I remember seeing that.
It's not like the drink Mai Tai. It is spelled WYTAI, which is an acronym for When You Think About It. And I think a lot of my like thoughts and a lot of the things that I've like written down in like one of like my like notes that I keep on my phone are things that would fall under this. And the definition is a feature of modern society that suddenly strikes you as absurd and grotesque, from zoos and milk drinking to organ transplants, life insurance, and fiction. Part of the faint background noise of absurdity that reverberates from the moment our ancestors first crawled out of the slime, but could not for the life of them remember what they got up to do. And I think, so I have definitely felt this about zoos. The last zoo that I went to, I was like, this is so depressing. Like, I understand that a lot of them take in animals that, aren't fit for like natural life anymore. And I think that's like a good case, but like all the animals look so fucking sad in there. And it's just, I don't know. I sat and thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, that's fucked up. And like I said, I know that like a lot of them are like animals that are like kept there because they can't survive outside. But I think there's also a lot of animals that are there just because they're in captivity.
Right.
And
I think everything that could be on that list of things that are just like, what the fuck, and Muay Thai is just because money. Like,
yeah,
a lot of the things that we've developed as in a society develop because they can make a profit, right? Like you mentioned life insurance, and like anytime I have to go to any healthcare provider, I'm like, here we fucking go. Like, I just hate dealing with it. It's such a huge pain in the ass. And when I sit there and think about it, just like the mechanics of how it works, it's just like, this makes no goddamn sense. Like, this fucking sucks. But then I also think about, well, it exists because money. So like I
think
get
a
it,
lot of
but
it,
I hate it. It does,
I think a lot of it exists because of like cultural reasons too, or maybe cultural is not the right word, but like traditional, right? Like for example, like with like milk drinking, like that is something that humans have been doing for ages.
Right.
But I mean, when you really think about it, it's like we're drinking another animal's milk, like that is made for baby cows. I don't know.
Dude,
or baby almonds.
Or baby almonds, yeah.
Almond milk.
Dayton,
squeezing the almonds.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you got that boysenberry liquor for me in New Zealand? So the distillery where they make that, when I was in New Zealand, we went there. We met the guy who runs it, and that's where I first tasted it. That dude was super anti-cow's milk. He was going on a rant like, yeah, why the fuck do we drink the milk of another animal? And I'm just like,
it is
you're
messed
kind
up.
of right.
It is messed up when you think about it.
Like, I'm gonna still eat ice cream and drink milk, but like, it's kind of fucked.
It doesn't make any sense, and I don't know. I find it kind of nasty.
Yeah.
But
crazy. The vegan doesn't like milk or the concept of
I don't
milk.
understand why we need. I don't want to get into this full debate, but I'm just gonna drop this. I don't understand why we got to drink cow's milk when oat milk is like a vastly superior milk.
Okay, along with that, because I don't drink milk anymore. I think drinking milk is weird. But what do you like? Do you consider that similar or different from like using milk to make like cheese or like other dairy products. Like, do you consider those all in the same category?
Yeah, because
As
it's
like the
still using
same
the
weird.
same. It's still using the same product, same
Okay.
initial thing.
But can you make cheese out of oat milk?
Not well. Actually, I don't know about oat milk. You
I
can
don't
make
think
it
it
out of
has
like
the fats.
cashew. You can make it out of like cashew milk,
Really?
soy milk, um, I,
I mean,
pea milk. I've made mac and
I
cheese
would
out of
just
pea milk.
like the reason kids drink milk and not oat milk is because it's tradition. That's what their parents drink. So that's what they buy for
Mm,
their kids. So, like I'm sure eventually we'll transition. Like hopefully we do. But I think a lot of it is like you mentioned tradition. You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Gabe, do
The
you have
other
any white
one.
ties?
Oh,
I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I don't know. I feel like that happens a lot. I'll have like an observation and just be like, why is it like this way? Or this makes no sense kind of a thing. But I can't
Mhm.
think of anything off the top of my head. It's like a prime example.
one of my favorite. Well, I won't say favorite. One of the things that I like find myself saying a lot to myself is like, don't overthink it. We're just fucking advanced monkeys. And I think like a lot of that comes down to like this like why tie feeling, right? Like we kind of like get in our own heads a lot of the time thinking about like these different things, but like I have to like reel it in. I'm just like, just don't fucking overthink it. Like I don't know, just let your
Mhm.
monkey brain handle some things.
I like that. Joseph, what's the next word you want to bring up?
So again with Dayton's, I'm gonna slaughter this pronunciation. Um, but I think it's not it notice Collins, which is the realization that the plot of your life doesn't make sense to you anymore. That although you thought you were following the arc of the story, you keep finding yourself immersed in passages you don't understand, that don't even seem to belong in the same genre, which requires you to go back and reread the chapters you had originally skimmed to get to the good parts, only to learn that all along you were supposed to choose your own adventure. And I think that is a morbid, very morbid thing that I can see myself easily falling into. Like, I don't
Mm,
think I'm there yet. I just want to preface that.
right.
But, like, we graduated college and now we work. And it's like, okay, I have to decide what I want to do with that. And, like, I'm still deciding, right? And, like, figuring that out. But I can easily see getting to a point where you're just like, all right, the next step is this, the next step is that. And then you're like, I don't know, down the line and you're like, is this what was this my plan coming out of college? You know, like
Hmm.
why am I here? Why am I doing this? I wanted to do that or, whatever. And I
Hmm.
can easily see
Right.
it and I think it's an interesting thought.
So just kind of
Also, I like
like,
his like description of it with the story and going back to reread it like, all right, what the fuck did I do in college? Why I got to go back and figure that out to figure out why I'm here kind of stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
hmm when I think of that word, I think of like just kind of drifting aimlessly.
Hmm.
Like it's kind of, I mean, up until you graduate college or graduate high school, and in some cases as well, and you just start working, it's like your life has been incredibly structured up until that point, and then
Hmm.
you reach a point where there's no definite next chapter, right? It's like you could work in that same job for years. You could have the exact same group of friends. You could, stay single or stay in like the same exact relationship that you're in for the rest of your life. You could not have kids. Like literally everything could stay relatively constant for you, and there'd be no next chapter. Uh, and I don't know. To me, that's scary. I don't like the idea of not having a next chapter. Like I feel like there's always something that I'm like either like working towards or some other chapter of my book that I want to get
Hmm.
to.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't write. I saw that word, Joseph. I didn't write it down because I agree with you. I don't really feel that yet, but I do agree that I definitely could very easily, like depending on what I do after grad school. If I don't end up in the kind of doing the thing I kind of feel like I want to do, then I would be like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
How did this happen? But I don't want to think about that word yet because it scares me. Gabe, your turn.
Kind of fuck up, obligatory fuck up pronunciation. Sepimorphism is
I like that one.
Conversational hint that you have something personal to say on the subject, but don't go any further. Empathetic nod, half-told anecdote, and enigmatic I know the feeling, which you place into conversations like those little flags that warn diggers of something buried underground. Maybe a cable that secretly powers your house, or a fiber optic link to some foreign country. And I don't know if, I mean, maybe I do it without being conscious, but I definitely pick up on it on other people all the time, especially like people that I'm not extremely close with. Like I think going back to like meeting new people, or even like sometimes coworkers, like they'll say something like, what do you mean? Like, was that a joke? Was that like,
like deeper there?
Was there some drama? Like, I don't know. And there's all the time, like I'll have, especially if I'm in a group like with another person, and like they pick up on the same thing, is like, what did they mean by that? Like, I have a terrible story about the gym where someone was I was lacing up. I was getting ready to go. This guy walks in. Joseph knows this story, I think. I'm getting ready to go. I'm putting on my shit. It's cold, so I'm like putting on my sweatpants, putting on my boots. This guy walks in. I said, "Oh man, I almost didn't want to make it today." And as you know from the previous episode, I'm pretty close with the lady at the desk. And I'm like, I'm like, do you just start? And like we had a conversation or whatever. And he said some like stuff that was like really weird and off, and I was just like, whatever. Like he just needs motivation, whatever. And then he ends the conversation with, better than being fat and lonely, and then just walks off. I was like, oh my god, that's what it was. There was something hiding, and I couldn't figure it out. And you helped me resolve it. Thank you. But
I don't know if that was buried very deep. I feel like we could figure out pretty easily what he was hinting at there.
I don't know. I didn't like. I wasn't trying to pick it up. You know, like I was just trying to go, and then he just let it all out, I guess.
I think the thing that I like the most about like that feeling is like when like you said, like somebody else like picks it up at the same time that you do, and then you both like side eye, or like you both like scan the group, and you're just like,
the desk lady were making some eye contact.
A little weird.
You picked up on that, right? That was a weird sentence.
Yeah, I also pulled this word, Gabe. I really like it. I feel like I try to do these little hints, but I'm not sure. I might be too subtle. Like I don't know if people always pick up on it. I like, especially I've done it relatively recently. And like it was like a lab meeting where like I'm the first person there, just being my professor, and it was like the day after or 2 days after like the Capitol riot, right? And you know, it's always dangerous to do politics with like
you don't touch that subject
with like people you work with. So, you know, he's like, oh, how's it going? I'm like, you know, it could be better. Things are pretty crazy right now. It's like, you just like, I could go on a rant about this.
You were just
like,
baiting him, Jacob.
I know. But it's like, we can't not acknowledge what happened yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, shit is, you can't tell me how's it going when the world is in the state it's in. You know what I mean?
Dude, he's laser focused.
Yeah. But I don't know. I really like this word. I think it's a cool thing. So you know, you can like connect with people sometimes. Let's say it's like in a group setting, and like people are like taking turns talking, and like maybe you'll say something like, "Oh yeah," and you'll kind of drop that little hint of like, "I could go on, but I'm not going to." And you make eye contact with somebody. It's like, yeah, you get it. I don't know. I like it.
I think it honestly relates to the word that you brought up earlier, Jacob, the adronitis, where it's like you place. I would say most people like kind of place like these, you know, hints or like they hint towards something, right? And you know, if you're willing to get to know somebody a little bit better, then you can pry at it. But also it's like sometimes I'm just like, man, I really cannot be fucked to pry into this like at all. Like
it's like the door analogy, because you're saying like you have to spend time looking for the key. It's like when you drop one, it's like the door's unlocked if you want to come in, and sometimes you're like, oh yeah, sure. Sometimes you're like, not today. Like I'm fucking tired. Like, I can't make it to the door today.
Have you guys ever met people? We have a friend that does this where he'll like start with those hints, like underlying hints, and that's like how he starts a conversation.
It's so obvious, and it's like, dude, just fucking come out and say what you're gonna say.
So like, for example, he'll be like, that's why on a Tuesday at 2:00 at Denny's, I'll never get a pancake slice again. And you're like, what? And he's like, okay, so it was a Tuesday at Denny's. That's the whole like setup. Dude, fuck, man, just say the fucking story. Like we were already talking about pancakes.
To quit fucking baiting me, just spit it out already, damn it.
Just tell the fucking story, dude.
It got to the point sometimes when he would do it, and I just wouldn't say anything. I'm just like, I'm just not gonna acknowledge it. Like, I'm just gonna wait for you to come out and start it because this is fucking dumb. Like, it's
dude,
so obvious.
Yeah.
I vividly remember, like, I think you and I, like, we've been sitting on the couch, and he would walk in and say something, and like Jacob and I would just be like just like sitting there, and it'd be for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then he would go into the story, and we're like, here it is.
I love him to death. Oh my god, that shit cracks
so
me
funny.
up. But that's what I mean. Like, I think that's a perfect way of defining that. It's just a little seed, but like, I guess that's not nearly as subtle.
Yeah, say some are more subtle than others.
Yeah.
Actually, the next word I'll pick is along the same lines of adrenitis and cephomorphism, and it might be the only positive word I've seen in this dictionary, but it's called flashover. Really like this word. The moment a conversation becomes real and alive, which occurs when a spark of trust shorts out the delicate circuits you kept insulated under layers of irony, momentarily grounding the static emotional charge you built up through decades of friction with the world. I love this. It's like that moment when, like, it is when you're like doing the small talk, and then there's like they say something, you say something, and like there's like a connection. You're like, oh, okay, and now we can actually be real with each other. I actually kind of had that today. I was talking to somebody new, and we kind of had a little flash over, and I like how it mentions like when the irony fades away, because like a lot of the small talk is like a little bit of jokes, maybe a little self-deprecation, the same. That's like what Gabe was saying on the first date episode. Like, you have your script,
but you can have shit spark. You're like, oh my god, like,
yeah. Then you can have an actual real conversation. That's the flashover, baby.
For me, I call it like in my head, it makes no sense, but I call that like dry versus a wet conversation. Where like when the conversation, I don't know why, it's just don't give me that look. It just
don't want to know what a wet conversation is.
I don't know which one's the good one.
When it gets wet, it's like, oh, it's juicy. Like, this is a good conversation. Right. Like, it went from like, okay, I'm going through the motions. Like, if it's like, I don't know, a random person you just met, or like a coworker or whatever, and then you start hitting something that you guys are both like interested in, or like, I don't know, then it gets like, you're engaged.
It gets wet.
It gets wet, dude. It gets juicy.
When you said wet, I imagined like a wet T-shirt. I was like, oh, like, I don't want it to get wet.
I don't know.
Juicy's a better word. I like juicy.
Yeah. Well, I guess I think of I don't know. I think juicy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Love that.
I like a good flashover. Dayton, what's your next word?
I'm going to go with keyframe. And this one, now that we've talked about Joseph's first word, what was that, semomorphism or something like that?
That was one I had.
What was Joseph's first one?
Mine was a 2-worder. Let's see if I can find it.
I don't know.
Nodus tollens. Tollens.
Yeah, so like going off of that, like where you're kind of like drifting aimlessly, keyframe is a moment that seemed innocuous at the time but ended up marking a diversion into a strange new era of your life. And I think that these moments, at least for me, are like the most powerful. I think like the most memorable. It's like where you may or may not be like kind of like drifting aimlessly, but something happens, and it just sparks a new chapter of your life, or a new branch in your life. And I think for me, one of these examples that I've had in like the last few years was meeting one of my good friends over in New Zealand, who lived in Maine, and who I go backpacking and stuff with now. Like, in the time, like, we didn't, like, at the time of this keyframe, we didn't really like talk that much. Like, we knew each other, but we were like hanging out at a party. And both of us were just drunk as shit, and I was just being my normal self, just like spewing bullshit or something like that. And then we ended up having a conversation, and I don't remember a lot of what the conversation even was, but pretty much from that conversation on, like we've been like really good friends since then. And if you would have asked me, hey, are you expecting to, like meet anybody here at this party that's gonna be like cool, I'd just be like, maybe I'll bullshit with anybody. But like, I definitely was not expecting to meet, such a good friend at, a party that I ended up climbing onto the balcony at. But have you guys had any keyframes?
I think a lot of friendships start as keyframes. So your first interaction isn't necessarily like memorable or even like the best conversation, but somehow you like reconnect again, and then it's just kind of you just become friends. So yeah, I was having trouble thinking of any until you mentioned the friend things. I was thinking basically the friends I made at tech were all kind of made through keyframes. Or at the time, it's like, yeah, didn't expect this, but then it turns out to be something more. So
I definitely have one with snowboarding, I think. Because I picked it up completely on a whim. I remember very briefly seeing a poster, and for some fucking reason, I'm like, this seems like a good idea. And like at the time, I had a $20 like plastic shit snowboard that was like you took on sled hills. And I remember just like, I don't even remember like telling my parents. I just remember kind of seeing the poster and a brief conversation about it. And then like the next week, I was on a bus, and I don't really remember like what compelled me, because I was in fucking middle school. I don't know what compelled nerdy ass bullied fucking Gabe decided that was something he wanted to do. But like, I mean, this, last week or 2 weeks ago at this point, we went out to Wyoming. Like my life is vastly different with that hobby in my life, like it changed friends that I met in middle school and all the way on. Like I have different friends. I go on different trips and stuff dedicated just for it. It's like, I didn't think anything of it at the time. I don't even know why I wanted to do it, but I don't know how I could see my life without it, I guess.
Yeah. I also want to just note the other definition of keyframe in animation, because it's similar. And I only learned about this recently because I don't know a whole about how animation is made, but a keyframe in animation and filmmaking is a drawing or shot that defines the starting and ending points of any smooth transition. These are called frames because their position and time is measured in frames on a strip of film or on a digital video editing timeline. So basically a keyframe is like two stills and then you make an animation to connect the two, right? So it's similar to this definition, right? Where it's like it's a shot, it's a point in time, and there's kind of like an animation afterwards. That's the transition, and then you get to the next shot. It's like, oh yeah, we're friends now.
Yeah, I'd say that's a very similar thing, because it's like the first frame is not like super anything crazy, right? But like the transition in, and then where you end up, and then looking back at where it was, or whatever.
And yeah, it's cool.
Different.
Give me a word, Joseph.
All right. There's two ways you could pronounce it. I'm gonna, just fucking go all out and say it's
both
Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia?
Mamma Mia is the frustration of knowing how easily you fit into a stereotype, even if you never intended to. Even if it's unfair, even if everyone else feels the same way. Each of us trick-or-treating for money and respect and attention. Wearing a safe and predictable costume because you're tired of answering the question, what are you supposed to be? I don't feel so much about the last part, but like the frustration of fitting into a stereotype. And I see it a lot when like when you, Gabe, or Cooper are playing Tinder on our TV, where we'll like, we'll cast your phone screens to the TV and like go on Tinder and judge these women, ruthlessly, and
you're making it sound less fun than it is.
But anyway, it's like, oh yeah, it's like we each have these categories of who, especially on dating apps, like because you get a similar snapshot, right? You get like a handful of pictures, maybe a bio, and depending on the app, some prompts. Like you only got so much there, so like most people present themselves similarly. So like, if the fact that you can put most people into a bucket in your own mind means in all their minds you probably fit into one of their buckets, and you can see that anywhere. And yeah, I can see myself falling into, a bucket right now. I drive a Subaru Forester. I'm growing my hair out. I bought like a retro wave like windbreaker the other day. Like I'm like going hippie. Like I can see it forming around me. And like I like it, but like fuck.
Wait a second. I'm a white guy with a beard who likes craft beer and has a podcast.
I know.
Crazy.
And I wear flannels. Yeah, no. I feel that one.
And you're an engineer
from the Midwest. Gabe, do you have another word?
Oh yeah. Kenopisea. Fuck.
Some of these, I know these are based on actual roots, but some of them are so goddamn hard to say.
I feel like this one isn't hard. I'm just being stupid. Like, I don't know. It's Kinopsa. It is the eerie, forlorn atmosphere of a place that's usually bustling with people, but is now abandoned and quiet. A school hallway in the evening, a unlit office on a weekend, vacant fairgrounds, an emotional after image that makes it seem not just empty, but hyper empty, with the total population in the negative, who are so conspicuously absent they glow like neon signs. This one's so fucking easy to draw parallels. I think anybody at this point could do that. But I mean, the first month and a half that I started my job, it was like everyone was there. Now I think it's more normal at this point because I've worked way longer in COVID than I have normal. But like those first few weeks were just so bizarre to me, where it was like there's literally so many people in that building, and now there's like nobody. And even when we go downtown, the few times that we do, it's just so empty, and it's we're in a big ass city. I mean, it's like 500,000 people just the metro area or just the city. And there's barely anybody out sometimes. It's crazy. It's a weird feeling.
I like the feeling at night a lot. Like when you go out for like a night walk or something, and it's just like so quiet, and you're just like thinking of like all like the cars that would be driving, or all the people that would be walking around, all the noise. I don't know. I find it very peaceful.
Oh, I like it. It's just,
I think
it is bizarre.
At night, it's definitely different though.
Yeah.
Like night is like an expected emptiness and peacefulness. But like during the day, seeing like especially like the city, or like I can even think of like on my commute when like the pandemic like started and shutdown started, like my first couple drives like to work, it was like this is taking 5 minutes off my commute. Like this is weird. I should be in traffic right now. And like seeing these highways like not empty, but like severely less congested was very surreal.
Yeah. Even today, like I mean I've been working from home this week. So I've been going to the gym during lunch, and I went to the grocery store during lunch, and it's just like 5 people. It's just super weird. Just, I don't know, absolutely bizarre, but I dig it. It's like, oh, it's all mine. I don't know. But
I think a lot of times in like TV and movies, they'll have characters come up to like a ghost town or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's so empty. I wonder what it was like when it was, popping or whatever." And it's like, I feel like they want the audience to feel that feeling that we can't pronounce correctly. Like they want the audience to feel that like hyper emptiness, but like I never feel, because I'm like, you never showed me this place when it was alive.
Yeah, you didn't show me before.
This isn't hitting me at all. Yeah, I feel it. The maybe last word I'll do, I can remember we're getting close to time, but midding. Feeling the tranquil pleasure of being near a gathering but not quite in it. Hovering the perimeter of a campfire, chatting outside a party where others dance inside, resting your head in the backseat of a car listening to your friends chatting up front, feeling blissfully invisible yet still fully included, safe in the knowledge that everyone is together, everyone is okay, with all the thrill being there without the burden of having to be.
Literally,
what a peaceful word.
Listening to a podcast. This is what everyone listening to us right now is feeling.
Yes.
It's literally like the introvert's dream.
But only kinda.
There's a couple memories for me that pop up when I see this. One of them is like our senior barrel when we were like doing the cooking, You know, it's like people are there, they're having a good time, but we're doing something else, but we can kill like enjoy like the company and the presence and stuff.
It's the atmosphere, man.
The atmosphere,
it's the vibe, you know, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And the second one is I have a really fond memory of, this is slightly different but pretty similar. Very fond memory in New Zealand of I was on a road trip with some of my friends and we were driving along a highway. We had to do a long stretch, and I was driving and the other three people were just asleep. And there's this music going, and I'm like, this is nice. Like it's cool. Like you know, we're chilling. Everyone's asleep. I'm listening to music and it's very peaceful and it feels good that everyone's here. Everyone's safe. You know, it's just very nice. So I like the mitting.
Yeah, I remember I read that word and I was just like, yeah, like I mean it's an all right word. I don't know if I really like relate to it that much, but like as we're talking about it more, like I'm realizing that I really do enjoy that feeling. Cuz like with the example that they brought up, like the feeling of like being outside of a party when like everybody else is inside. Like when I initially read that I was like, but I want to be the one who's like dancing. Like I don't want to be the one who's out. I don't want to be the one who's on the outside.
I think a better example than outside of the party talking is like
chilling in the kitchen.
Our house parties. Yeah, like the kitchen. Like being in the kitchen, maybe not necessarily playing, like because we usually had a game of pizza box going, not playing pizza box, but watching people play pizza box, and like being a part of the conversation and like knowing there's people literally a room over just fucking going ham, dancing, like. Yeah,
you're going ham doing something else. You know what I'm saying, Joseph?
Oh yeah, who knows? Yeah, at our
not
parties.
Not at our parties.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Nobody was getting lucky at our parties.
Yeah, I think it's just that environment that it gives off. You know, like the
vibe.
I really hate to use. I feel like I'm overusing vibe lately, but it really is. Like if there's a vibe going on, you're like, I am digging this. You know. I don't know.
Let's do one last speed round. So we don't have to go a whole discussion, but just one more word that maybe it's like the way it sounds or something about it. But let's do a speed round. We'll do Dayton, Joseph, Gabe, then me to end it off.
Okay. My word is going to be no CN. And it is a moment of awareness that someone you've known for years still has a private and mysterious inner life. And I think a lot of my words relate back to Jacob's first word of like adrenitis, however you pronounce it. But I think this one ties into that. Where like you might never get to that final door. You never know.
Can't find that damn key.
Yay.
Yay. Let me in. Let me
in. So my final word is silience. I think it's silience, something like that. The kind of unnoticed excellence that carries on around you every day unremarkably. The hidden talents of friends and coworkers, the fleeting solos of subway buskers, the slapdash eloquence of anonymous users, the unseen portfolios of aspiring artists, which would be renowned as masterpieces if only they'd been appraised by the cartel of popular taste. Who assume that brilliance is a rare and precious quality, accidentally overlooking buried jewels that may not be flawless but are still somehow perfect. I think the description is very beautiful, but I also think that is a very interesting thought. It's like everybody is an expert in their own life, and they all have their own like things, right? And like you may not see it as like being an expert or like being remarkable, but to other people it is, and you may never learn about it from other people, and it could be like it said close friends or complete strangers. Like you're like we were saying, like you never know everyone else's life, but like driving the car, it's like the person in the car next to me may have some awesome hidden talent, but I don't know. I think it's just kind of neat and cool to think about.
Yeah. I kind of feel a small version of that feeling when I see like really clever Reddit comments. It's like, how are these people this good?
Yeah, that's true. I got Jouska. I can actually pronounce that one. A hypothetical conversation that you compulsively play out in your head. A crisp analysis. Cathartic dialogue, a devastating comeback, which serves as a kind of psychological batting cage where you can connect more deeply with people than the small ball of everyday life. which is a frustrating, cautious game of change-ups, pitches, sacrifice bunts, and intentional walks. Everyone's done this. Have like hypothetical conversations in your head or like comebacks, and also I don't know. I definitely will overthink some super obscure thing and that's going on in my life, like that compulsive analysis all the time. What did that mean? What am I doing?
I like that Jouska sounds like joust. You know, it's going at each other.
Me too.
Fighting. The last word I'm going to do is actually not from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows.
Excuse me?
Man, what the fuck?
Get him off the podcast.
So this is from the YouTuber Brian David Gilbert, who I'm a big fan of. And he published a video a couple weeks ago called That Feeling of Biting into a Pickle, and it's a little squishier than you expected. And the video is about him having an existential crisis about this feeling and what to name it, and he comes up with the word gerb. So gerb is that feeling of when you bite into a pickle and it's a little squishier than you expected.
I feel like this boils down to having expectations, and the expectations make the outcome that is otherwise not gross gross.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's like the classic example of like you think you're grabbing milk, but you grab orange juice. You know, and you're like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah.
No, that is a nasty feeling. That is a nasty feeling, though.
Don't like it. All right. Well, if you're interested in the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, give it a search or check our description for a link to it. It's very long. How many pages is it, Joseph? Like 118. 18?
Yes.
So you got a lot of.
But those are short pages. It's like
what, six entries. Yeah.
6 entries.
Yeah. He really drew it out a bit, you know.
And there's some repeats as well.
Yeah, and like the descriptions, are pretty long, too. Adds to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joseph, you said that you read a lot of these the past couple of days, and you've achieved a sense of enlightenment.
I don't know about enlightenment. I felt a little depressed for a little bit. It's like, oh, that hits a little too deep. But I think there's some. I think if nothing else, the descriptions are very interesting, and I think it's worth checking out, even if like you're not going to use these words in your daily vernacular
lexicon.
Yeah. But
when you mentioned that he kind of developed this when he was trying to write poetry, and I do think the descriptions have a poetic feel to them.
Oh, they definitely do.
Yeah, so go check it out. You might find a word that perfectly describes how you're feeling this very instant. But don't partake for too long or you might get depressed. With that being said, thank you for listening to this episode of the Internet Without Filters podcast. As always, find our show on YouTube and podcast services on Monday mornings. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram at ewfpodcast and follow us on Twitch at ewf_podcast, where we're live on Monday nights and Thursday nights having a good time. And with all that, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Peace. See ya.